So this happened about 13 years ago. I was 10 at the time and my brother was 8. We had just moved to a new town that year, and the Walmart here had this sweet arcade up near the service desk. So every time my parents would bring us grocery shopping, they would give us a few dollars and let us play in the arcade. The town had an incredibly low crime rate, and the arcade is at the front of the store where dozens of people are checking out. So what could possibly go wrong? My brother is playing the claw machine, while I'm standing on the side of the machine, trying to help him angle the claw perfectly above a stuffed animal that he's trying to get. Suddenly, this random hillbilly walks up to the claw machine next to us, inserts a quarter and begins moving the claw around. But for most of this time, he's making eye contact with my brother and smiling, not even watching the game. He's not talking to us, just staring and smiling. He has long, thin brown and silver hair, pulled back into a loose ponytail at the base of his skull, a camo trucker hat, and a long, scraggly beard. I remember vividly the way that he smelled. Stale beer, ashtray, and something that smelled like a sweet yet sour dirt, or a fungus. He tries making small talk with my brother and I, who were raised to be aware of strangers but to still be polite. Eventually, we get bored of the game we're playing and I usher my brother to follow me to a new game, all the way on the opposite side of the arcade. A few seconds later, the man follows us, stationing himself once again at the claw machine next to us. At some point, an overweight lady walks in and says to the hillbilly, "What are you doing to these little kids?" and snickers at me. He replies, "I'm trying to win them some stuffed animals." She then begins playing the claw on the other side of us, so that my brother and I are sandwiched between these two strange hillbillies. His comment comes across as weird to me, because previously I thought he was maybe trying to win something for his kids, but this entire time, he's just been following my brother and I from game to game, trying to win us toys. This has been going on for maybe 20 minutes at this point. They've followed us to several different machines and spent a lot of money. The games were all 25 cents per play. Each time, my brother and I switched machines. They would follow us. The hillbilly says to the lady, "I'm out of money, you got any?" She says, "Nah, I'm broke too." My brother says, "I have $1 still." Now, this is the part that really scared me. I remember listening to these two talk about some weird things with us, asking if I have a boyfriend, asking where we go to school, where our parents work, asking if we've ever done drugs. But when my brother said that he had $1, she responded with the most terrifying thing I'd heard from them yet. The woman suddenly burst out, "Well, crap, then give it to me, boy." Her face was red. The tone in which she shouted was so ear-piercing and gut-wrenching that I could feel the blood drain from my face. My brother looked like he was about to cry. He hands her the $1 and her face lights up. She laughs it off, almost like she's trying to make it seem like she was joking when she had yelled at us. My father walks up a couple of minutes later. As I turn to tell him that these people have spent close to $15 to win toys for us, they leave hurriedly before he gets a good look at them. My dad is livid. He takes us up to the front desk and tells them what I told them. They make an announcement on the intercom to keep an eye out for these people, and to report to an employee if they see them. And then they call the police. I don't actually remember this part, or much of anything after my father arrives, but this is what he told me. They never did find the couple, and the police reviewed security cameras. They were too blurry to make out any physical description, and told my parents that the couple left the store immediately after my father showed up, without any groceries. Every time that I see a man or a woman in Walmart that looks as I remember them, I get anxiety and try to avoid them. Early last year, I had a strange encounter that you all might find interesting. So, a quick tidbit about myself. I help people as often as I can, including giving money to homeless people, or giving rides to hitchhikers if we're going the same way. 98% of the time, the worst I've encountered is awkward conversations, and being asked if I have drugs to sell. No matter what though, I don't mess with people at night, or in groups, and I keep weaponry on hand though. I've never needed to show it. This is not one of those times. I lived in a lower income area of my city, and only about a half a mile from the local homeless shelter. So I've seen plenty of people in a sad state during the 2 years that I've lived here. My apartment building kind of sat in a little valley with a little ravine across the street that deer often hung out in. They left our bus shelter on really rainy days. I lived on the 3rd floor. So one day, I come home. It's blowing snow at around 15 degrees out. In my entryway is a dude sitting on the staircase. It was obvious that he was homeless and looking for a place to warm up, as he was wearing 4 days worth of clothing at once and had 2 backpacks with him. Not a big deal as long as he's not there when the building is locked up for the day. Our security consisted of having locks set for a 9 to 5 office hour. As I pass him on the staircase, I give him a smile as I do to literally every other stranger, not screaming at me on the planet. He stops me and he tries to talk to me. Now it's obvious that he doesn't speak very good English, but I was able to discern that he was asking for water, and that he was waiting for a friend who lived in the building to come home. Yeah, no problem. I head up to my apartment to get water for him, and he follows me. This was a bit uncomfortable, but I was already having a hard time communicating with him, so I let it slide. And this is where things go wonky. My apartment was an efficiency where the bathroom was right inside the front door, and then a tiny hallway into, well, everything else. I walked to the kitchen to get the water, and he points at the bathroom. Yeah, sure, dude. I have cleaning supplies. That's what they're there for. And so I go around the corner, pull out a couple of bottles of water from the fridge and come back. And he's standing there, buck naked in my hallway. And then it dawns on me. Water. He was asking for a shower. Oh God. And then he tries to ask me to join him. No, that's a hard pass. You understand, no. He goes into the shower and I pace in my living room trying to figure out how the frack I can communicate to him that he needs to leave. Cause things went from uncomfortable to creeptastic in 0.6 seconds. And then it got worse. He comes out again, buck naked, without a towel, and begins wandering around my apartment, commenting on everything. And his you-know-what is a little excited too. Did I mention that part? Yeah, I lose it. Politely, because once you're in retail, that never goes away. And I try to get him to put clothes on. He doesn't understand me. I pull out my phone, pull up Google Translate, and show him the listed languages. He understood what I was asking and he selected Somalian. Goody, that's some progress. Now that the things he's commenting on, in terrible half-English, is, "You live alone. Does this TV work?" Nope. Done. I type into Google Translate, asking if he needed to call his friend or call the apartment management. He gives me a thumbs up and then climbs into my loft bed. I guess I'm cleaning that too now. So I'm like, which one? Another thumbs up. Okay, so he either didn't get what I was trying to do with the app after all, or he can't read. Eventually, my lizard brain took a breather from panicking long enough for the logic part of my brain to take over, and I went to where his clothes were and pointed at them and then at the door. He got dressed and left. Simple, done, over. I shake for about 2 hours, drink a 6-pack, and post what happened to Facebook. In that time, it dawns on me that I probably just got staked for theft. So I spend another hour double and triple checking my security camera, which I originally got to check on the puppy that I was training at the time, for later. Guess what? The next day, he was back on these stairs again. I tried to be pleasant, but made it very clear with head shakes and a roundabout trip back down the stairs, and back up the other flight on the other side of the building to my apartment, that I wasn't going to help him again, or be his buddy. 2 days after that, he was there again. I told the landlady, and she had him removed, and I never saw him again. And before you ask, no, nothing was stolen. I moved to the exact opposite end of the city 4 months ago. Things have been going well since then. So, let me get a couple of things straight. Our little village was the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and I could count the amount of houses on 2 hands. We were a really quiet and close-knit community. Nothing ever happened here. Proper out-in-the-sticks stuff. One night a few years ago, my mom and my stepdad had gone out to this concert, and left me in charge of my little brother and the dog. I wasn't very old, only about 14, and I felt really proud that my parents had trusted me enough to do that. I thought I was a pretty cool big brother, and I thought we would be doing cool babysitting stuff like staying up late, eating pizza, and so. I'm kind of glad we did, because I don't know what would have happened if we didn't. At about 10:30, the power cut out. I didn't think anything of it, because the weather hadn't been great lately, and I figured that I had to do something with it. I got some candles out of the cupboard and I lit them, and put some of our favorite songs on. As soon as I sat back down, Sonny, my little brother, turned to me and, being the weird little kid that he was, told me very calmly that someone was outside. I was a little perturbed by him, but the dog hadn't done anything, so I presumed it was just the neighbors or something. He just shrugged it off and went back to his drawings. There's a running joke in our house that you don't need a clock with the dog around, because he is such a creature of habit that he will consistently get up exactly the same time every night to tell you that it's time to initiate his nightly go-to-bed protocol. It was about 3/4 of an hour after the power went out when my dog decided that now was that time. I told Sonny to go get the dog his biscuit while I let him out to go to the bathroom. Now, our kitchen is an extension to the original house, and so as such has a flat roof that's completely low to the ground compared to the rest of the house, and offers easy access to the bathroom window. As I opened the door so the dog could do his thing, Sonny pushes past me in the doorway and whispers, "I know you're out here, and I'm calling the police." As he turned around with the biggest, proudest smile you have ever seen on his face, there was a very distinct rustling coming from just above the doorway. I don't think I'll ever forget the way Sonny's face dropped when he looked just above my head. I looked up. The man sitting on the roof above me panicked, tried to kick me, and then ran off into the next door's garden, and presumably into the cornfields surrounding our village. I was scared, and Sonny was bawling his eyes out. I ushered him inside as quickly as I could and got a knife from the kitchen. We both went to his room and I told him to try and get some sleep, while I waited for our parents to come back. It was an agonizingly long 4 hours before they did. My stepdad immediately went outside to check to see if everything was alright. I heard them talking about how somebody had smashed the fuse box. Obviously, we called the police, but they didn't come until later that day. They did a search of the immediate premises and found a makeshift bed in a nearby, disused barn, along with pictures of silhouettes of us in the shower through the frosted glass. I think it's pretty safe to say the whole experience definitely shook us up. We moved out as soon as we could, but I still shut the curtains whenever I can, and I see shadows underneath every door that I see. Sonny keeps quiet about it for most of it, but I'm not sure if that's just because his brain has cut it out or what. My family used to live on the far outskirts of a city on the west coast. This city happens to be where I was born but no longer live. The city in question is somewhat notorious for being home to addicts and members of a few street groups. But before this, I foolishly thought that if you were dealing with one of the few landowners in the outskirts, you were pretty safe, and we're not speaking to the type of crazies that filled the town proper. The incident in question started about a month before the big finale, as it were. My stepfather was out of town to deal with a family grievance, and so it was my mother, my two little sisters, and I to start with. Our landlord, who I thought to be a pretty normal person, started to make frequent appearances on the property. Nothing creepy so far, but he kept going into tangents about the bushes that grew on the side of the yard, what species they were, when they would bloom, and how the flowers looked. This went on for a week or so before finally he told us he was looking to sell the land that we had been living on, and that we would need to get started with the process of packing up. Our landlord's visits could continue without my stepdad home. He would say strange things here and there, but it all came to a head one night when he showed up, long before our eviction date. He was wild-eyed, speaking really funny, and it hit me like a rock. This man was very, very high on something. He started screaming at us that all the vehicles needed to be removed from the side of the property by a certain date. And then he wandered off to an empty lot adjacent to the house, and started pulling his shirt off while spinning in circles. Needless to say, my family were all freaked out and trying to call Dad to come home, before this weirdo went from alarming to dangerous. He was screaming now that he knew my dad had drugs and that we'd better share them with him. My dad was very anti-drug. We looked away for a brief moment to get some things done in the house when we heard his truck leave the property. Thinking that we were done with the landlord for the day, we started to calm down when suddenly up the drive comes the landlord and a few tow trucks. Seeing as my mother was unlicensed, she couldn't comply with the landlord's demand to move the cars or they would be towed immediately. We ended up calling the sheriff while blowing up my dad's phone at the same time. The sheriff arrived to see this man raving at the tow truck drivers to haul everything away and to bill it to my dad. We explained to the sheriff that we had given several days to move the vehicles, but he had showed up with the tow crew that same night. The sheriff managed to calm the landlord down, got him to stop screaming obscenities at us for a moment at least. The landlord left that night, and we assumed he would be back the next day to finish what he had started. We started to turn back to the house when the sheriff stopped my mom and told her in a dead serious voice, "I think he may try to come back and enter the house. If he does, call us. I can't tell you to shoot him, but if he forces his way inside and you fear for your family, you do what you have to do." This little bit stuck with me since having an officer tell my mom that she was okay to do this if the landlord came back. The rest of the night was uneventful, and we made sure to call up family to help us pack quickly the next few days. We managed to get moved out before he could make another appearance, though we had to stay with my uncle for a little while things were prepared in the house that we were supposed to move to. I still worry to this day that I'll run into my former landlord when I visit my old hometown.